Good Tuesday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Cavs will get the season underway tomorrow in Toronto. We will talk with Sam Amico from HoopsWire.com a little bit later in the show. We begin by talking Browns. Browns in bad need of a win in Baltimore Sunday at 1 o'clock, trying to break through to the win column again after 3 straight defeats. Joe Thomas, former All-Pro left tackle for the Browns, likely a first ballot Hall of Famer here in a few months. He was on the 33rdteam.com talking about the Browns offense and what he saw against Patriots.
As you know, we played Bill Belichick and the Patriots a ton of times. They're going to try to take away what you do best, and they're going to be physical, and they're going to try to out-physical you, right? So in the run game, you knew they were going to try to take away Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. They were going to try to be more physical, which I think they were, especially early on in the game. They got a little bit of a lead, and I'm a big believer in taking what the defense gives you. And in that case, the Browns are getting 8-man boxes. And so obviously you're saying, okay, now we got single coverage in the back end. And for the most part, any starting quarterback in the NFL, we should try to attack that with some big chunk plays, make them back up, get one of those guys out of the box, and then try to hammer our running game. Unfortunately, when they tried to push the ball on the field, Jacoby couldn't do it, and he threw turnovers, threw interceptions. He fumbled the ball in the pocket on sacks, and he really just overall struggled to get the ball to their playmakers in the passing game. And so I think it became a catch-22 for the offensive staff. Like, do we continue to try to push the ball down the field because that's what they're giving us, or do we try to run our head into a headache with this Patriots defense who's coming downhill really hard? Matthew Judon is playing really good on the edge. He's setting the edge. He's forcing everything back to the inside, and those guys are playing really physical. And so I think Kevin Stefanski maybe pushed the ball down the field too much when he shouldn't have, and he should have just said, I don't care, you're trying to take away the run. That's what we do the best. We can't put it on Jacoby Brissett right now, even though he has played well in the past. We just don't believe that that's our best chance to win. And I think that the Cleveland Browns offensive line probably walked out of that game feeling really frustrated.
Again, Joe Thomas talking about the performance against the Patriots. Let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Tim, I think that's a very fair and accurate assessment. In retrospect, Kevin Stefanski probably wishes he'd have run the ball, run Nick Chubb more than 12 times.
Yeah, especially early in the game. I mean, that second pass play that was picked up on the deep ball to Pharaoh Brown that was picked up, that felt like kind of a tone setter for the rest of the game, kind of similar to the interception Baker Mayfield threw early in the matchup in Foxborough a year ago. It seemed like from there, it was kind of deja vu as far as, the Browns offense failing to do pretty much anything consistently. And, I understand, obviously, the Patriots strategy, and it makes a lot of sense. It's what we've kind of been talking about in the lead up to the season. Teams are going to try and sell out against the run and dare Jacoby Brissett to beat them. And on Sunday, picked a bad time to have his worst game of the season. 3 turnovers. He just struggled with accuracy all day. I mean, if he's throwing 40-plus times in a game, that's a bad omen for the Browns, pretty much no matter the opponent. And it's clear he has limitations. I think that's the big takeaway from this game is he has limitations, and they become more apparent over these last 3 weeks. He started well, but you're kind of seeing why Jacoby Brissett has been a backup for most of his career.
And you know what? That's fine. I mean, you know what to work around. Take a look at this. This is Pro Football Focus Elusive rankings, and that measures yards from broken tackles as well as missed tackles, like stacked boxes, for instance. So Dameon Pierce is number 1 in the league. Nick Chubb is right behind him at 147.7. My point is, Nick Chubb is one of those guys that you should allow to run into stacked boxes because he's shown he can be effective with it.
Yeah, and I mean the downside to playing the stacked box of your defense is if the running back's able to find the hole or it's blocked up, all of a sudden you have nobody back at the second level, and it becomes a huge play. So it's kind of a feast or famine style of defense. And it seemed like to me, obviously, I'm one that kind of champions offensive balance, that I think you win with balance in some regard, where the pass complements the run and vice versa. I think there are times where even if the run's not working, you got to keep trying. Try once in a while because you at least got to keep that defense honest. And like you said, with Nick Chubb's ability to break tackles, with his elusiveness, his speed, I mean, he's basically a total package running back. you give him a couple extra chances to see if he can hit one, and maybe that changes the defense's philosophy, that changes up their scheme a little bit, and then all of a sudden the play action becomes more viable, and that's where the Browns' best success from the last couple of years in the pass game is off of play action, when you're playing off of that running game. When you don't have the run game working and when you're kind of staying away from it, that's where I think problems pop up in that passing game. Now, maybe the Browns kind of got, scared away from running the ball. Obviously, the deficit had a huge role in that. But, I mean, you got to find the middle ground between being scared of it and running the ball just for the sake of running the football there. You got to be willing to trust your running back, because Nick Chubb is as much of a big play threat as you're going to find at that position in the NFL, where on any one carry, he's capable of taking it the distance, or at least ripping off a chunk play of 15 to 20 yards.
Yeah, and Nick Chubb got 12 carries. Jacoby Brissett threw the ball, I think it was 45 times. I just don't see, and I know you fell behind. I think you got to be very careful about what you ask and what your expectations of Jacoby Brissett are. Be realistic. All right, we're going to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico, and I just want to know, why was the game plan against the Patriots for Jacoby to drop back 40-plus times? Now, obviously, I'm not a coach in the NFL. I'm just a fan. But in my humble opinion, having Jacoby drop back that many times versus a coach who knows how he plays, and not to mention the greatest coach of all time, is not a wise decision. The Patriots players were actually thanking the Browns for helping them stop Chubb. They didn't need to stop Chubb. Our very own coach helped them stop Chubb by not handing the ball off. I just wanted to know your thoughts on that situation. Thank you. As always, go Browns.
And again, I appreciate all the voicemails. I tend to agree. And I think sometimes you get a little too cute. You're worried about the stack box. You're worried about Belichick taking the runaway, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair criticism of Kevin Stefanski as a play caller. Sometimes he does get a little too cute and stray away from the strengths of his football team, which right now is running with Nick Chubb and behind that offensive line. And certainly, there's the aura of Bill Belichick where you're afraid of you're afraid he's going to do, and for good reason. I mean, he's the second winningest coach in NFL history. He tied George Halas on Sunday, now only trailing Don Shula in terms of career wins. So obviously there's an aura around that. But I think, to the counterpoint of the caller, I mean, it's not the game plan to go in throwing 40 passes. I mean, you got to see what the defense is doing, and then you got to make adjustments to it. I think they did fall kind of victim to, trying to go for the deep ball early. I mean, being way too aggressive. I mean, the deep ball to Pharaoh Brown was not the right decision on the second play of the game. Just trust in. I think what Stefanski needs to do in certain situations is just keep things simple. Trust in what you have. Trust in Nick Chubb, and trust in the offensive line to set the tone. Because not only did they not run the ball well, they only had the ball for about 25 minutes. So that's a team that usually wins the time of possession battle, and that's how they win. They just had the football more than the other guys. And then the third quarter, obviously getting out by 2 and even 3 scores, you kind of really don't have the ability to run the football anymore, because time's just not on your side in that instance.
Yeah, and again, folks that I know that took a look at the All-22 think there was a lot of things there that Jacoby Brissett just did not see and did not take advantage of. But again, you threw way too much early in that game. Give your running game a chance to get going a little bit. This is from Kurt Warner, Hall of Fame quarterback, and it's a tweet about Bailey Zappi. And Zappi understands the game, what he's looking at, processing information. Browns D is tough to watch. Good players, but it seems like everything is always open, and they make offense easy. And again, that's from a Hall of Fame quarterbacker who is looking at the Browns defense. And I'm seeing a similar type of thing. There were guys that in the passing game with Zappi there was nobody in the screen covering them. I don't know how guys get that wide open against a rookie quarterback who's like a 4th-round pick.
Yeah, and I did honestly believe there were a lot of things I liked from Bailey Zappi. I'll say that out of the way right now. I thought there was some. I liked some of the poise he had. He was able to step into some throws early, and I liked seeing that. Obviously he was playing pretty confident on Sunday, but I think going back to Kurt Warner's point about the fact that this has been happening for years with this defense. And I keep going back to, Joe Woods, being the defensive coordinator. This is his third year with his defense. He's had time to kind of iron things out and figure out what's going on with the defense. And instead, you're having the same issues pop up again and again and again. And I'm of the belief of that when you have very talented players, but it seems like everybody's collectively underachieving for whatever reason. That goes back to coaching. That goes back to not putting your players putting them in the best position to be successful, letting them be the best versions of themselves. And right now that's not happening. 6 games into the season, this defense has not really put together one complete good game. The best they had was that first half against Carolina, and then they almost outdid it with all those blown coverages in the second half to Baker Mayfield and company. So it's just been a bad year for this defense all around. And Joe Woods is the guy that I think has to really take a lot of the blame for this. And they're giving him a shot, at least into this next week, to turn it around. I mean, he did last year after New England, going into Baltimore. That's when the Browns made that turn defensively. He's going to have to do it again, or there might have to be a shakeup on that staff.
All right, let's take a look at the efficiency rankings for the Browns. We'll take a look at all of them. So here is the offense. Points per drive, 7th. Red zone, tied for 12th. Goal to go, 14th. Touchdown percentage, 6, 3 and out, 10th. Not bad. Now you look at the defense. Points per drive, 28th. Red zone, tied for 21st. Goal to goal is tied for 11th. Touchdown percentage, 28th. 3 and outs. This one surprised me, tied for 5th. The one that jumps out, PFF tackling grade, tied for 30th. There's only 32 teams in the NFL. And Pro Football Focus special teams grade 24th, again, bottom half. What that tells me is the analytics from Pro Football Focus and the efficiency rankings tell us what our eyes see, which is this defense is underperforming woefully.
Absolutely. And I mean, you can have a defense that's bend or don't break, but it seems like in some cases, this defense is bending and breaking. I mean, the one good thing about them is the goal to go numbers, the 3 and out numbers. Those are pretty good, but everything else is pretty dreadful. And as I said, when you look at the talent on this team, that should not be happening by any stretch of the imagination. This is supposed to be a team with a very good front four that can pressure with 4 guys, a secondary with some very good corners, some talented safety depth. And right now, there's a disconnect. Through 6 weeks, there's a disconnect. There seems like there's an intensity disconnect going on. I'm not sure what the situation is. It's a team we know is talented. They're on paper, they're one of the most talented teams of football, but they're just not getting it done right now. And this was the easy part of the schedule. They started with it. Now they go into the last 11 weeks of the season where it's going to get harder before it gets easier, if it even gets easier for this team. They're really the only ones who are going to be able to fix this, or basically it's going to just be a bad defense all year. And the thing we said with this team this season, their best chance for success is leaning on the run game and the defense. The run game's done its job. The defense has really fallen short of what it needs to do.
Tim Bielik and I are going to take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit more about the Browns. What's the quarterback passer rating against a couple of the Browns defenders? Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Time for us to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Just have a quick question. Do you think that the Browns need more football guys in the building, like in the front office area? You know, like when we had John Dorsey, a real football guy, you know, guys who are real football guys but can handle the analytics, because I feel like the analytics is what's going to kill the Browns at times, losing too many points on the board. And I feel like they need a balance with, you know, somebody who's got some more football knowledge to help them realize, hey, this is the ebb and flow of the game. You don't take these points, you could have needed them here. You know what I mean? So I guess my question is, do you think that the Browns need more football minds up in the office to help balance out the analytics? Just want to hear your guys' opinion. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Tim, I think, and I'm not one of these guys that is a big fan of analytics, but I think what analytics is, it's kind of data that backs up your decisions. The other thing I'd say is Pete Prisco, the national writer from CBS, had a chance to talk to him at the Combine a couple years ago, and he said Kevin Stefanski is definitely a football guy. Knew him from his days back in Philly. Said he's not an analytics guy. He'll listen to analytics, but he is a football guy. So I get the question. I think there's a little bit of a misconception about how much analytics is driving things. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that idea of the term football guy thing, I don't like, you know, that disconnect between the idea of analytics guys and football guys. I mean, it's the same thing we're kind of talking about when we go back to the days of Moneyball when Billy Beane was just starting up in Oakland with the Athletics. And quite honestly, I think my counterpoint to that is, like, you know, pure football guys really never helped the Browns much at all. You go back, you know, they've had football guys since '99 and they still have struggled to really get going as a franchise. And John Dorsey, he does deserve credit for getting Nick Chubb and Denzel Ward, for picking them, but, you know, he's also made plenty of bad decisions. So I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is just, you know, when you look at this football team out there, the biggest thing that stands out to me is, you know, it goes back to not having your starting quarterback in Deshaun Watson. And when you have a backup quarterback in there like Jacoby Brissett, your margin for error is naturally diminished. And you have to do a lot of things well in order to win football games, because you don't have a quarterback on the field right now who's able to make up for those mistakes. And right now they're making too many mistakes to win consistently, and that's particularly on the defensive side. They're not getting it done right now, and they're leaving too much of a hole where even when the offense is playing well, and it has for the most part for the first 5 weeks of the season, it's making too big of a mess for them to clean up. And they're basically, it just means you're asking too much of Jacoby Brissett, who is a backup quarterback and not one of those guys who can overcome all of those things to win consistently.
Yeah, I would agree. And a lot of it falls on the defense. And I'm a guy that thought the defense was, you know, if you view this, you know, I thought the defense was going to be good, and it hasn't been. Take a look at this. This was kind of eye-opening. This is Marcus Mosher. He is an NFL beat reporter. Quarterbacks have a passer rating of 130.2 when targeting Grant Delpit. He has been awful in coverage this year. And Grant Delpit was a trendy pick as a guy that was going to have a breakout year, and there was plenty of reason to think that, but he's had a lot of company on this Browns defense, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of guys underachieving, and I think Grant Delpit, unfortunately for him, is kind of the poster boy of that. We saw him really take some great strides toward the end of last season when he looked like one of the better players on this defense. And even in the first game, he had the interception against Baker Mayfield in the first half. But, you know, those coverage breakdowns that this team has had throughout the season, it's been the safeties and the cornerbacks not communicating, and Delpit's been partially responsible for that. And then the game against New England was just a mess for him. He really just had struggles all the way across the board, you know, whatever it was asked to do, coverage, tackling, you name it. And he just hasn't lived up to the billing that I think everybody's expected of him. And, you know, part of the problem is guys are just not playing well enough. Maybe they're trying to do too much in certain situations or whatever, instead of playing within themselves, playing within the scheme of the defense. And maybe that's part of the problem, is guys are not doing their own job. And Bill Belichick says it best when he talks about philosophies: do your job, and basically saying do your own job and don't worry about trying to do somebody else's job. That's where the problems come from. So every player on that defense needs to worry about only the things that they have to worry about. And then if 11 guys are doing that, naturally they should be able to have a better chance to be in sync in those situations. But bottom line, those guys just got to play better, regardless of, you know, what goes on with coaching.
Yeah, without question. And, along those lines, Sione Takitaki yesterday talked about it. What can each guy do to correct their mistakes?
Obviously, you want to work on all the stuff that we're messing up. That's what I mean by tightening up. And just from my standpoint, you know what I mean? I had some bad alignments, you know what I mean, that led to some big plays. But, that's what I mean by tightening up, you know what I mean? And that's what I mean by being 100% committed, you know what I mean? Not looking at the person in the mirror and doing my job. So, going this week, you know what I mean? I'm going to be 100% committed on my job, going in and fixing all my corrections that I need from the game and getting this thing right.
And again, there's 11, 12, 13. How many of your guys play on defense need to do the same thing?
That's accountability right there, and he's saying it. Jadeveon Clowney said it last week. It's about each guy, looking themselves in the mirror and trying to ask themselves what they need to do better, individually, because that's the way you fix this thing when a bunch of guys are underperforming. That's the easiest fixes for the guys to simply make adjustments and play better within the scheme. And it comes down again to, not worrying about trying to overcompensate and do way too much and trying to do something because you're worried the guy next to you is going to make a mistake or whatever. That's when you compound mistakes. Now, individual mistakes are going to happen. Guys are going to get beat. The other team's going to call a better play and just be able to outmaneuver you based on the scheme. That's going to happen. The last thing you can do is overcompensate by trying to do somebody else's job instead of worrying about your own individual responsibility and taking care of your own job, because one breakdown can set up a lot of problems for the defense. And we've seen over and over and over again, individual breakdowns, coverage breakdowns, missed tackles. And when you add all those things together, you get the mess that the Browns defense has put itself through in these last 6 games. So it's on as much as, the coach has got to improve, the players have to improve too. It's everybody is responsible for this, and everybody's got to do their own job, not anybody else's, their own individual job every single snap. And that's going to be the best way they can turn things around.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll take a look a little deeper into some power rankings for the Browns. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Well, welcome back to Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, Frank from Cleveland. I caught a clip of Quincy, our guy, and he's getting rid of Delpit, Greedy Williams, John Johnson III. Before you go doing all that, we got a good group of young talent there on defense. Let's get rid of the defensive coordinator and try somebody else, because the talent is there. I don't think they want to play for Joe Woods, to tell you the truth. I do not think they want to play for him. Thank you for taking my call, and I'll be back in touch. Bye.
All right, as always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Tim, it's an interesting point when the thing that I had said yesterday. I don't think the Browns are putting their defensive players in a position to succeed. They're not asking them to do what they do well. You're asking guys to do things that are their third, fourth best skills. And yeah, if you're a player, I could see where that might wear on you a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of the old mentality of trying to put a square peg into a round hole. It's just not going to work. It's more old school coaching style versus, the modern style where you're trying to put you're building your scheme around what you have and making the most of what you have going for you. I mean, look at the New York Giants. Brian Daboll suddenly comes in. The Giants were one of the worst teams in the NFL last year, and all of a sudden they're 5-1, and they look really, really good despite only adding a few extra pieces. Those guys are just playing better because Brian Daboll is coaching to their strengths. And you look at Joe Woods, I understand the frustration. that they're not getting the job done, that he's been a defensive coordinator into his third season. It's called 40-plus games between regular season and the playoffs, and it just hasn't been good. I mean, the second half of last season notwithstanding, that was outstanding on his part, but it's not going well this year. I mean, the NFL is a what have you done for me lately business. It's clear that obviously the Kevin Stefanski still believes in Joe Woods. That's why he's still here right now, but I can't imagine his seat being much hotter than it is right now. And quite honestly, he needs to get better. He needs to find a way to turn this around because it's his defense. He has plenty of talent around him. It's on him to put them in the right spot. And through 6 games this season, that's not really happening.
Yeah, I agree. He's got to get it fixed now. All right, let's take a look. This is a quarterback ranking, QBR, and pass block win rate. So quarterback ranking goes QBR is the vertical, the horizontal is pass block win rate. And take a look at the Browns. So Jacoby Brissett, the win rate on pass blocking is high, and the guys that are on par with him are the Jalen Hurts, Marcus Mariota's, Jared Goff's. So again, with that win rate, you would hope that his QBR would be even a little bit higher. So I guess what that's shown is a little bit of the limitations that we've come to see with Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of shown in some of the passes that he's thrown the last few weeks that it's just not why he kind of is who he is. I mean, I look at that big throw he had to David Njoku in that game against the Patriots. If the throw is led better, David Njoku is probably still going for a touchdown. He also missed one where he had Anthony Schwartz wide open in the end zone. The limitations from Jacoby Brissett were obvious, and I think that's why nobody's expected this offense to perform as well as it had through the first 5 weeks of the season, and where the run game was going to have to carry the mail for them. But it shows that they're giving Jacoby Brissett enough protection, and it also shows that when Deshaun Watson comes back, once he knocks the rust off, he's going to have a good offensive line in front of him that's going to give him time, and he's obviously much more talented than Jacoby Brissett is. So you would imagine he's going to get more time and opportunities than he had in Houston to be successful. And if he plays with a similar ability that he had in Houston, this pass game all of a sudden becomes one of the best in the NFL, because not only do you have an elite quarterback, you have an offensive line in front of him that's getting the job done blocking. So that's not been the issue. It's just got to be on the quarterback. He's got to find a way to execute better. All
right, let's take a look at ESPN Power Rankings. And the Browns this week are in the bottom half, 23rd. So down from 18. And again, the offense wasn't good. The defense has been really bad. They do have the talent to turn it around, as Jake Trotter from ESPN suggests. And right now they stand at 2-4. Both Bengals and Ravens are 3-3 ahead of them in the North. So they win the next 2, they're in first place. But there hasn't been anything the last 3 games that would suggest to you that they can beat the Ravens and the Bengals.
No, not at all. I mean, it's basically been just a lot of things that have, started to trend downwards. Jacoby Brissett's play has trended downwards. The defensive play has kind of fallen off a cliff the last 3 weeks, particularly the run defense in the first 2, and then the pass defense on Sunday, just giving up anything that Bailey Zappi wanted, he could pretty much get in that game. They're just really not taking it to teams on that side of the football. And I think that's where part of the issue lies with this defense, is just they're not aggressive enough. They're not assertive enough and trying to control games. Like I said last week, it seems like a style where they're just kind of waiting for things to come to them instead of being the ones to take the onus and take control of the game. Now, the offense has, by and large, done its job. Last week was really this Sunday was really the first clunker the offense put up, and that was because that was the first time all year they didn't get the run game going. So, I mean, these are the 2 games that if they win these next 2, they're 4-4. They're guaranteed first place in the AFC North heading into the bye week. All of a sudden, then you only have to win one of those last 3 games before Deshaun Watson's available, and then all of a sudden you're back in that playoff mix that everybody wanted this team to be. It really doesn't matter how you get there; it's just that you get there. But bottom line is, this team's just got to be better, pretty much across the board.
Tim Bielik and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason and take a look a little bit deeper into that matchup with the Ravens. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
Tim Bielik and I continue talking Browns. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yeah, hi, this is Ron from down here in Clayton. And I really hate to rip on my team. I've been a Browns fan from 1963, my whole entire life. And this team we're putting out on the field right now, I feel like our backfield could get lit up for at least 300 to 400 yards against Ohio State. There seems to be zero accountability with the coaches and with the players. Our guys come out on the field and they got about zero get up and go. You can tell they're just flat coming out like they went to a kegger on Saturday night. There has to be some changes made, and if they don't want to make changes, maybe there's some attitudes that need to be handled. We've got guys out there that are getting paid humongous amounts of money to be professionals. And like I said, I swear to God, I think Ohio State could come up and light them up right now on offense. The defense is shabby. Stefanski wants to stay with a backup quarterback when he's not winning. I don't know. What's the answer? Maybe you guys have the answer. I sure don't. Love your show. I'll be a Browns fan my entire life. Wolf, go puppies.
All right. As always, appreciate the voicemails. Tim, we talked about it a little bit. The defense needs to come out and play with some intensity and extended intensity.
Yeah, and that just hasn't been there the last 2 weeks. I mean, the last 2 weeks they've come out flat, in some cases uninspired, and that's not the way you play defense. I've said it before. You play defense with an attitude and a willingness to be assertive, and the last 2 weeks I just haven't seen that. The closest we've seen, I go back to week 1 in Carolina, the first half of that game, that defense was dominant. That defense was assertive. That defense was, getting after it, and it hasn't been close to that since then. Maybe you could say the second half against the Steelers in week 3, but that's really been about it. So you're talking 2 halves out of 12 on a season where the defense is looking like it's supposed to. And when I look at, the idea of zero accountability, I mean, it's up 53. The idea of benching guys just for performance, I mean, it's a 53-man roster. It's not like college where you have 80, 90 guys where you could just roll one in after another the second someone not performing. They just had to be better. I feel it seems like the team recognizes that based on, just how they've been talking the last couple of days. They know they got to be better. They're the ones that can make this fix. And when it comes to quarterback, I mean, of course they're starting a backup. Their starter is suspended 11 games, so the only other option is a guy in Josh Dobbs who's hardly thrown any passes in a regular season game. So maybe at that position, the answer is you have no answer. You have to play Jacoby Brissett basically 5 more games, get the most out of him, and get the most out of the rest of the team, because that's how you're going to win these games till Deshaun Watson comes back, and for him to look like Deshaun Watson again. That's pretty much the only recourse they have.
So CBS Sports ranked the 3-3 teams throughout the NFL, and the top 3-3 team was the Ravens, the team that the Browns play. No team has done more to beat itself this year than Baltimore. And I would say the Browns have done every bit as much as Baltimore has to beat themselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way they've struggled defensively. I'm with you 100%. It has been, has been arguably the most underachieving team in the NFL. You could put the Browns and the Broncos in that discussion as far as who's underachieved the most through the season. But Baltimore, my goodness, I'm looking at the numbers. This was a team that invested heavily in the secondary. They signed Marcus Williams to a big contract in free agency. They drafted Kyle Hamilton, the elite safety out of Notre Dame, who I thought was one of the best players in the entire draft. And now they come into this game with the 5th worst pass defense in football. Now, granted, looking at their schedule, they've played the Dolphins, they played the Bills, they've played the Giants. So they played some tough teams. Their schedule's been tougher than the Browns have. But, they have not been good either. And usually we see Baltimore as a team that's able to be really good at the end of games. You have Lamar Jackson, who's one of the best quarterbacks in football. You have a kicker who's in range as soon as you cross the 50-yard line. With these late game issues, it shouldn't be a problem. They should be able to handle those things. And we saw them collapse against Miami. We saw them collapse against Buffalo. Although, the Bills are the best team in football, so it's no surprise that, they would be able to come back, make it a game, and possibly win that game. But Baltimore just is not getting it done late. The Browns are just underachieving. So one of these teams is going to end up having to turn it around because somebody has to win this game on Sunday.
So let's take a look. Lamar Jackson has struggled particularly in the fourth quarter. Passer ratings by quarter for Lamar Jackson. You see first quarter, all right. Second one, 114. Third, 100.6. And in the fourth, 56.3. He's thrown 1 touchdown, 4 picks in the fourth quarter. And there is a negative 42. They're minus 42 point differential as a team. So they've had some late game issues, just like the Browns.
Yeah, it's going to be an issue of, who just kind of shakes off those fourth quarter woes better. Is it going to be Baltimore's offense where they're going to be able to protect the football better, or is it going to be a Browns defense where they really haven't shown much resistance by that point in the game when teams have made their adjustments and the Browns haven't been able to respond to those adjustments? So it's going to be fascinating to see who kind of pulls out of that tailspin first. I think Baltimore's certainly more likely to because of Lamar Jackson's dual threat ability, how dangerous he is running the football, that it seems like he's gotten better throwing the ball. The turnovers have been the big issue with him, but the Browns have also not been able to force the turnovers. So something's got to give when it comes to that matchup. Are the Browns going to be able to turn around on defense in the fourth quarter, get those stops, get the turnovers against the Baltimore offense that hasn't been able to hold on football in those situations? Or is Lamar Jackson going to be able to kind of balance things out a little more, protect the football better, and do those things that he's capable of doing that we've seen him do for the last few years?
Yeah, and those are going to be the keys to that game for the Browns without question. Tim Bielik, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Tim.
Thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day.
All right, Tim Bielik, make sure you check him out. Pages of the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. We're going to take a quick time out. We turn our attention to the Cavs getting ready to open up the NBA season tomorrow night in Toronto. Sam Amico from HoopsWire.com. Straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Sports4CLE continues. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers getting ready to open the season tomorrow night in Toronto against the Raptors. J.B. Bickerstaff was asked a couple days ago, did the Cavs get done what they needed to during the preseason?
I'm a little hesitant because obviously the injuries just took out key pieces of things that we would like to see and would like to have gotten done. But, from an understanding of who we are and how we're going to play and all those things, I think everyone is on board with that. Like, our priorities are clear. It's just a matter of getting all the pieces together and on the floor at the same time so that they can grow and get to and reach their potential.
And with that, let's welcome in Sam Amico from HoopsWire.com. Sam, some new pieces, still going to be one of the youngest teams in the NBA this year. Did you see enough that you're excited about what's going to happen here?
Yeah, I think you go on what happened last season, really, and you think about that they didn't really have Colin Sexton, and then they made the move for Donovan Mitchell. So you actually added a 3-time All-Star to a team that was already extremely promising. But yeah, I think there's going to be a little bit of bumps in the road maybe at first, just because of all the, you're integrating a player like Mitchell along with Garland and Mobley coming back for his second year and Jared Allen, all those pieces together, as well as Karis LeVert, who really, even though he was traded for last year in the middle of the season or late in the season, because of his ankle injury and not having a full training camp with his teammates, this really almost serves as his first year as a member of the Cavs. So there's a lot of newness, even though you have your nucleus of Garland and Mobley and Allen returning. You throw in Donovan Mitchell, who's obviously a very big piece, but you still have to integrate all these pieces into a fit. So is it exciting? Yes, absolutely. Should they be better? Yes, absolutely. But it just may take a little bit. It may not do, but it may take a little bit for them to get rolling.
How good can Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell be? A lot has been made. Mitchell's an all-star, Garland ascending. Mitchell, you could argue, still ascending. How good of a backcourt duo can they be?
Without question, they can be, and this sounds like hyperbole, but it's not. They can be the best backcourt in the Eastern Conference for years to come. You have two guys. Mitchell obviously has proven time and time again that not only is he a very good scorer, but he's a winner. In Utah, they won a lot of games with him in the backcourt. Great athlete, great teammate, known as a great teammate, great personality, very, as they say, coachable. So I think when you throw a guy like that into a team that already had a lot of players who not only bonded in terms of on the floor, but, are by all accounts really good people, and you throw all that together, and you've got a pretty nice mix. So, look, Darius Garland, we saw him become an all-star last season. He may not be as good as he's going to be. He's still a very young player. So I really think that, they have the potential, even though they're smaller compared to a lot of NBA backcourts with two guys who are 6'1". They're interchangeable, and a lot of quickness, a lot of athleticism, a lot of basketball know-how, and a lot of energy and positivity from both players. So I think that, combined, they really have a shot. You think about Atlanta with Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, obviously a very good backcourt and promising backcourt as well. But I would give Mitchell and Garland the edge right now, just going into the season based on not only what they've accomplished, but their promise.
So for Cavs fans, you don't get to see a lot of Utah Jazz action. So it's kind of like the Cavaliers minus LeBron James. How good is this guy? How good is Donovan Mitchell?
Oh, the one thing that everybody's talked about that personally I've been most impressed with is the fact that not only does he average 20 points a game during the regular season, but his scoring average tends to go up in the postseason. And it's more than just about scoring for him. In Utah, he had to carry the load a lot, especially in terms of putting points on the board. He won't have to do that as much in Cleveland. If he has an 11-point game, it's not going to be a make or break game for the Cavs, because you've got obviously Garland and Mobley and LeVert, who can also score. Jared Allen's going to get his points, off of lobs and whatnot. And then you've got other guys who historically are able to come up with some big games. You know, maybe Isaac Okoro has a 20-point night. Maybe Kevin Love had one. But as far as Mitchell individually, he's one of the best athletes, natural athletes in the league. And a lot of people didn't realize that, like you said, Dave, because he was playing kind of in no man's land out there in Salt Lake City. So he's just an outstanding athlete, does everything pretty well, doesn't really have much of a weakness. And, by all accounts, has really been getting after it defensively in practice. And we've seen that a few times in the preseason games as well. So, you talk about a well-rounded guy. If he were 6'7", 6'8", I mean, you'd be talking Hall of Famer. You still might be, but he's really a magnificent player, able to score the basketball, almost like just a better version, improved version, more athletic version of Colin Sexton. And I say that as someone who thinks Colin Sexton is a pretty dynamic scorer.
All right, so this is from ESPN's preview for the NBA. Win predictions for the Cavs. So ESPN has them with 45. 538 has them at 44. Caesars, the under-over is 47.5. What are some realistic expectations for these Cavs, given that they're young, given that they're going to take some time to figure it out, and not necessarily a win total? Where do you think realistically they should shoot to finish in the East? Where do you think they might be able to finish in the East?
Well, HoopsWire.com has them at 50-32. So that's about where I stand. I think that would be probably fifth or sixth in the Eastern Conference. The East is pretty good. I mean, it's no slouch anymore. You've got the Celtics and the Bucks and the Heat and the Nets, if they're ever able to get their act together, are really good on paper. So, I mean, that's just a few of them. 76ers I haven't thrown in there yet. And then teams like the Cavs are probably the next tier, only because they're younger than those teams that I just listed. And young teams, as we suspect, are going to take a little bit longer than these veteran teams that have, quote unquote, been there before. So, I look for them to finish probably in the 4, 5, 6 range. Any of those won't be disappointing. If they go as low as 6, that's not terrible when you're talking about what really still is kind of a new program, a young nucleus. And I think they'll be in the mix. I think it'll be like last year in the Eastern Conference. If you remember, Dave, it went down to the last day to determine the seeds, and that could be very similar this season.
Yeah, and I don't think it's out of the question that they end up one of the top 4 and get a home playoff series as well. Who are some guys you think could break out this year? Who are some guys that, when you look at it and you go, that might be a guy that takes a jump and kind of helps elevate the entire team?
Well, the two guys that I suspect the most that are in line for that play the same position and are battling for the starting small forward spot, and they may be battling for it all season, are Caris LeVert. And, it's hard to say, well, a guy who was an automatic bucket with the Pacers is going to take a huge leap. But I think that he may take a big leap in terms of his fit with the rest of the team. He spent the offseason really working on, I don't want to say getting in better shape, but really just taking care of his body and really making that a focus. He's also really made a focus to become a facilitator, which I thought in a couple of the preseason games, he looked very good at not only scoring, but keeping the ball moving. And J.B. Bickerstaff has even said, we want him to facilitate more. We've asked him to do that, LeVert, but we also don't want him to forget what he does best, and that's put the ball in the basket. So, I think if he gets it figured out in Cleveland, he could be a huge boost that maybe a lot of people aren't suspecting will be a huge boost amongst all this talk with Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, and Evan Mobley. People may forget about LeVert a little bit in there. And the other guy, of course, would be Isaac Okoro, who I believe, look, we saw the leap Darius Garland made in year 2, or from year 2 to year 3. And now Isaac Okoro is entering his own third season in the NBA, and that's usually when guys take a leap. And this is really his, again, I don't want to say make or break year, but this is really kind of a year where you're going to make a decision. Is this guy really going to be, part of our long-term future? How good of a fit he is. So I think Okoro could be in line for a big season, whether he starts or comes off the bench. Simply because the pressure is off of him. You talk about all these other players on the team, the young players. Okoro's kind of the forgotten man, but he could really turn into Andre Iguodala or PJ Tucker role player type that does exceptionally well.
Sam Amico from HoopsWire.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. We'll hear more from JB Bickerstaff about team's chemistry, also take a look deeper into the Cavs roster. Sports4CLE, will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Cavs with Sam Amico from HoopsWire.com. Cavs getting ready to open the season against the Raptors in Toronto tomorrow. JB Bickerstaff talked about building that chemistry that was so important a season ago.
It's the respect that we show each other every single day. It's the willingness of everybody to do whatever it takes in order to make the day go as smoothly as it possibly can go. It's the speaking to people, as simple as it sounds. It's the camaraderie, like all those things that we try to foster to create the environment that we're trying to create and continue to build here.
And Sam, that was one of the things that was impressive. It was young, and it was a team that by all accounts, and you could see it, they had fun playing the game. And you don't always see that in the NBA.
Right, exactly. And what Coach Bickerstaff just said there really counts for a lot. You have to have the right mindset, not only as a individual player, but as a collective group. And, look, I hate to keep bringing up the Nets, but we see what happens when you maybe don't have everybody on the same page or a good mindset or a good approach to the season. They've been one of the most disappointing teams in the NBA since they got Durant and Irving and then Harden and, of course, now Ben Simmons. The Cavs, on the other hand, really had a positive approach, were able to overcome their youth because of it. And they have a good relationship with their coach, which is a big thing in the NBA. You have to respect the coach. And we've seen what happens throughout the course of history when teams and players and star players don't admire their coach. But that's not an issue in Cleveland. All the guys greatly respect and admire JB Bickerstaff and what he's kind of his system that he has in place. So that goes a long way. It can carry you a long way. It can carry you in times of trial, obstacles. And guess what? During the NBA season, there are always all sorts of obstacles, whether they be injuries, whether they be what seems like unfair road trips, unfair scheduling quirks, which include a lot of back-to-backs. As JB Bickerstaff said there, as long as we have the right mindset, the right approach, and come to work every day and keep enjoying the game and keeping the games the focus and getting better the focus, they're going to continue to be in a good spot.
All right, we kind of touched on it a little bit. Who do you think starts at small forward? J.B. Bickerstaff said Saturday he knew, but he wasn't telling us. So I guess we'll find out tomorrow. Do you have a gut feeling who ends up as the small forward?
Well, I think he's known probably since the summer when they got Mitchell and he started drawing up plays with the new lineup. But, look, gut feeling would be Karis LeVert. A lot of people will say, well, that's a lot of scoring in the starting lineup. Wouldn't you like LeVert coming off the bench? And that's a reasonable thought. At the same time, I think LeVert really, he can. His last game as an Indiana Pacer last year, I think he had 42 points. So, and the fact that he's become much more of a willing facilitator, and the fact that he really has talked a lot about defense and how he wants to be a complete player and improve defensively. And, preseason, he was taking on guys like James Harden, defending them. I just think that, you give yourself that extra weapon. Look, Jared Allen isn't really an offensive weapon, and that's okay. He gets his points off lobs and putbacks and those sorts of things. But you really have a lot of scoring capability if you factor in Garland, Mitchell, and LeVert, and, of course, Evan Mobley, who's going to get you 15 to 20 a game. Even if he doesn't take a step forward, he may be able to do more than that. So I think the reality is that Bickerstaff is going to go with LeVert at first and see how that works. And if not, maybe you're not getting enough scoring off the bench, so you move LeVert to the bench. But I think as a third-year player, Isaac Okoro would probably be more willing to accept the role off the bench at this point. And maybe you try it that way. And if it doesn't work, look, you've got Isaac Okoro, who's not a terrible fit himself in the starting lineup.
So let me ask you this: what moves the Cavs up a notch or two in the Eastern Conference? How do they find their way to get into the top three? And I'm pulling a number out of thin air.
Well, I will say this, Dave. Offensively, they're going to be fine. They'll probably be one of the best offensive teams in the league. Last year, top 5 defensively. That's where it's going to matter. That's where it's going to make a difference, is if they are continue to be in the top 10 defensively as a team, because really that's the difference in the NBA so often is you have all kinds of offensive firepower. To me, the Los Angeles Lakers last season with LeBron, Anthony Davis, when he was healthy, Russell Westbrook, that team still had a lot of offensive firepower. Even Carmelo Anthony coming off the bench, those guys could put up points, but they were really bad defensively. And guess what? They finished 33 and 49, couldn't even make the play-in tournament. So as much offensive firepower as the Cavs have, it's all going to be coming down to defense, rebounding, those little things, taking care of the basketball. On the bright side, they were all those things last season. So they just need to keep that going, maybe improve in those areas a little bit. But that's where it's going to be. If they can, if they become one of the top 5 defensive teams again, then they have a shot at finishing in the top 3 in the Eastern Conference. I'll say that with great confidence.
Sam Amico, HoopsWire.com, as always. Appreciate the time and the insight. Great stuff, Sam, I'm sure. We will be talking to you frequently as the NBA season gets underway Wednesday night, Cavs in Toronto. As always, check out HoopsWire.com. Sam has some great stuff, not only on the Cavs, but the entire NBA. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE. Sports for CLE continues.